Hey, Jen. I
Hi.
I'm just so glad to have you here on your Yesville Life. And we were just talking and realized, oh, we should probably hit record because we just always take it deep, like right from the beginning of the conversation. And I so
Yes.
appreciate that. I love that. So let me just jump off before I forget, because I want to make sure I ask you this question. What is one thing you either did or didn't do that has led to your yes-filled life?
I love this question so much, Brenda. And yes is actually my word this year, the word
Mm.
of the year. And it's that ability. I say yes to a lot of people, like a
Mhm.
lot of us do. Yes to a lot of external things. And so this year it's all about yes to what my internal desires are and what I'm wanting to create and to do and to be. But I would say one of the things I've been doing more recently is a practice where it's called a three brains practice. And I learned it from Melissa Tiers, who's a hypnotist. And it's you check in first with the heart because there's actually, I'm really into neuroscience. So there's a heart that's perched on top of the brain, like a
Mhm.
bird
Mhm.
nest almost. And so you check in with that brain and you ask, what does this part of you know? And then you move into the gut where the brain there, those neurons are more like a web. And so you check in with that part of yourself and like, what is the wisdom here for me? What do I know here? And then we move up into the brain that's in our skulls that we can check in and see, well, what is this brain? What does this part of me know to be true or know to be a yes? And because yes requires a no a lot of the time.
That's right.
So what do these three brains know that either help me figure out, is this a yes or is this a no?
I love this. So I have different language around it. But yes, exactly the same thing. Checking in with what I call the emotional body, which is the heart, the intuitive body, which is the gut, and then the mental field, which is the brain. And so, yes, I love this because they all have different information. They all work at different speeds. And a
Mm.
lot of times the knowing of one might be different from the knowing of something else. Like what I know in my mental field is very often different from what I know in my heart or my gut.
I love that. And I actually really love the language that you use around that, Brenda. I think that that's so beautiful to think about that as terms of fields of energy. As somebody who practices Feng Shui, that idea of place and that field of energy really speaks to me. So I love your languaging around it. I think that's
Mm.
beautiful. It just speaks to me.
Oh, I love that. So before we hit record, we were talking about the relationship that we had each had with a parent. We both lost a parent in the last couple of years, and in how we're navigating the after of that. And we were talking about not having realized that we had done so much caretaking for the length of time, perhaps that it really was caretaking. And when we think about energy, like landing the plane here, because we're going to be talking about feng shui, because Jen is a feng shui expert.
Yes.
Um, when we think about energy, can you talk a little bit about how your energy has been impacted, how you've come back to center throughout that process of losing a parent?
Definitely. I think what was so intriguing to me is I hadn't realized how much of my energy had been wrapped around the margins of my mom is who passed away. And so she'd been sick for quite some time, for 30 years. And so that was 30 years, all of my adulthood, that my identity and my energy had basically been filling in the gaps,
Mhm.
if you will. And so that when she finally did pass away and we lost that kind of what was in the center, right?
Mhm.
All of my energy then, it was almost like I was an imprint of her, like the
Mhm.
negative space of her. And
Mhm.
so then it became about how do I reclaim so that I can center myself, that I'm not in the margins anymore, that my energy, there's all of this space now to fill in and to really explore who I am, what I want to do, who I want to be moving into this next phase of my life. And so
Mm.
I think exploring that relationship to that spaciousness is where a lot of my work has been this year.
I love that. That is so descriptive. Like I have a mental picture of what your experience was like. I love the way that you talked about that. My experience was similar in some ways. Like there was definitely a fitting in around the spaciousness of my dad and his health challenges. And if you would have asked me how long he'd been sick, I would have told you up until he died. I would have said, oh, it's been a really tough year, a really tough 2 years. But since he's been gone, it's been a really tough 30 years.
Yeah.
And none of us had really recognized that. And so the way that it hit my system was I was working so hard to be the person that kept the family uplifted,
Yeah.
the one that brought, healing energy, the one that brought the high vibe, let's have fun. And then when he was gone, that felt so easy all of a sudden that it was almost disorienting because I just hadn't realized the work that was happening and the grieving in advance. There was so much grief in advance of his death. That's probably part of the reason why I'm functioning so well now is because so much of the grieving happened on the front end as I watched him lose ability after ability after ability.
I think that that's a huge part of what happens, I think, when you're giving care to somebody over such a long time, is there's all of these almost like bus stops along the way
Yeah.
to the destination. And so there's all of these stops along the way where we do process a lot of the grief. And I think it's easy sometimes to feel a little guilty at the relief at the end
Hmm.
when all of a sudden all of that energy kind of comes back to you and things do become easier, and it's a tricky thing to navigate, I think, in some ways, that feeling of like you're missing that person so much. They've had such a big impact in your life, and
Hmm.
yet there is this sense of relief on the other hand, that all this energy gets opened up and gets to be redirected into something that maybe can nurture and bloom into something else, and
That's
all that
right.
creative force. It's really
Absolutely.
exciting.
Yes. And so I knew I'm a medium, I'm a psychic, I have great intuition, meaning big intuition. And so I knew that he was going to come through after he passed. There was not a question. In fact, I even joked with him about it. I was like, "Hey dad, make sure you send lots of money when you're on the other side. Like just send me all the money." And so he laughed, and then it wasn't like 2 hours after he'd been gone that there was 3 pennies that randomly appeared in the middle of the floor. And so, there was just that confirmation. And I've been doing a mediumship practice circle. And usually it takes about 6 months for a departed loved one to come through a medium because the grief on the human is so intense that the medium often will it subconsciously block the connection because they know that they can't handle the grief of the living. And so, we were just approaching this 6 month mark and my dad came through. And I was like, I'm realizing it sounds tiny bit disrespectful, but this is how I talk to my dad. And I was like, "Hey, dad, what's it like being dead?" And he showed like jumping up and clicking heels.
Oh, that's beautiful, Brenda. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
And
love
so,
that.
yeah. So, that was a really nice confirmation. All to say, yes, there's a relief when they go because it's
Mhm.
time for them to take on a different role in the universe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as people who work with energy, like it's never created or destroyed. It's just taking on a new form. And so we might grieve the loss of the form, but we
Yeah.
can really relax and know that that energy is out there still, and many of us have ways to access it still and feel that sense of care and that joy that your
Mhm.
dad was sharing with you. I
Yeah.
love that story. That is beautiful. That is
Yeah. It
beautiful.
was really cool. So you said your word for the year is yes, and I love that. My word is impact. And I'm thinking in that word that I am allowing that to be my filter for what is my impact on others, what is their impact on me, and how am I impacting situations and how are situations and environments impacting me. And
Yes.
so, speaking of energy and feng shui and environment, it has a tremendous impact on how we feel, on how we show up, on decisions that we make, on our relationships. Could we talk a little bit about like what is feng shui for the person that has never heard of it? And maybe tell us how you got started.
Yes. Okay. So Feng Shui is actually this 5,000-year-old practice of basically mindfulness. It's observation of, and in the beginning, it was observation by agrarian people who were living deeply tied to nature. And so that ability to notice and to pay attention and be mindful of the environment was life or death, whether you were going to thrive or whether life was going to be very difficult. And so through their observations, they noticed that there are certain patterns in nature. And feng shui is really about taking those patterns that they recognized and using those same patterns in symbolic ways to shape I like to think of it as like kind of flavoring, adding the flavor to the
Mm-hmm.
energy that we live with.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how did I get into feng shui? Actually, was really interesting. I moved a lot growing up, and once I was 19 and I was in my own space away in college, it was really the first time I got to decide what my space was going to feel like and what it was going to be like all on my own. And it was when feng shui first came to the United States in the late 80s, early 90s. It was a Tibetan model that had
Mm.
come originally. And so just like learning that the things that I surrounded by myself with, that all of these were metaphors and symbols that were speaking to me, and learning how to kind of play with that in a playful way, that it just felt really good. And I've used it ever since. I mean, I'm gonna be 52, so it's been a long time since I was 19. It's been
Mm.
something that has really, we all have these practices, I think, that come into our life at the right place and the right time, that
Mm-hmm.
synchronicity. And so feng shui was one of those practices that just came into my life at the right place and the right time, and has been a companion this whole time in a way that I really love this practice because of how it does speak to my own energy and my sense of that intimate, there's an intimate relationship that we have with our space. I know
Mm-hmm.
that breath work is a big part of what you do. And if we think about what we're doing when we're doing breath work, it's this energy exchange between us and our space.
That's right. Oh,
And
I
so
love this.
we're breathing in and we're receiving,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're exhaling and we're giving. And there's just this there's not many things we actually draw into ourselves, the energy of like our food and other things, but we are actually, through the breath, we're drawing in the flavor, the energy, the kind of the secret sauce of the space around us. And so I think that there's an intimacy there that really is meaningful to me.
I love this. And I'm reminded why I love you so much because you just connect this like in a way that speaks to me. I just feel in my body like the whole chill bumps. I've heard it called blood lightning or, the like, oh, yeah, me too. I just love the connection that you have toward honoring the history, honoring nature, honoring yourself and recognizing the relationship, the reciprocity that we have with our environments. Oh, and by the way, I'm turning 52 this year too.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday to you.
I love it. It's a good year to turn 52. Are you an ox then?
I must be.
You're the
Yeah, I
ox?
think yeah, you're the ox,
Yes.
1973. I was
Yes.
born in February after the Lunar New Year. So yes, I
After the
must.
Lunar New Year, then you are an ox. Oh, that's exciting. That's
Yes.
exciting.
It's a good year
Oh,
for us. It's a 9 year.
it is year of completion. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful year. Yes. And
Yeah.
as an ox, a little bit of green. So the plants are going to be fantastic for you. So,
So
yes.
good. Thank you. Thank you. My
Definitely.
shirt does not look green in the or at least it doesn't look green on mine, but it's a green sweater. It's
Oh,
like
that's
emerald green.
perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yes. That can be our signature color this year
That's right.
would be green.
Yeah.
Yes.
The sound is changing in my office, and I apologize if anyone heard like a dog drinking from a bowl. It was my dog drinking from a bowl, and the repetitive rhythmic thing was his bully stick. And I brought him in here thinking it would be quieter, and that has not been true. So my apologies.
The cool thing about having pets around, though, is they do have such great energy. In Feng Shui, we call it qi. You might think of energy as prana, depending on your own practices. But pets that are well cared for and happy with their bowl of water and their chew actually really bring in such great qi. And so
Mm.
having a well cared for pet and a happy pet is really uplifting to your own personal energies. I actually love that you've got your dog there with you. I think that's
Oh,
fantastic.
thank you. Thank you. So you came into a container of mine. It was called Yes Academy at the time. It's since shifted and morphed, and now it's become your Yes Filled Life. But you were teaching about the yin and the yang, about like the action, the energy being really vibrant or maybe more restful. And I asked you a question not related necessarily to that at the end of that time, and it was about clutter. And at the time, I was living in a townhouse almost identical to the one I'm in now, with a great big island, and I couldn't keep it clean. I
Mm.
just kept like putting stuff there. And it was your conversation with me that made me think, oh, it's the energy that's moving too quickly in the space. So I'm subconsciously trying to slow it down with clutter. And you suggested that I create an adjustment by using red tape on the stairs. And just wanted to tell you, when I moved into this place, I immediately put the red tape, and it's a game changer.
That red, it's for those of you listening, it's red washi tape. And I want you to think of it like a stop sign. So
Mhm.
we use red in feng shui either to energize and activate and say, yes, please, or we use it like a stop sign to say, no, thank you. And so when we use that red washi tape along stairs, energy moving through it moves through the air like wind and water. That's what feng shui means. And so it has a current to it. And if it's rushing, we can use that washi tape. You can even think about a staircase being like a waterfall, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that air is coming down and just a little bit of washi tape there along that bottom step. Is that where you put yours?
Mhm. Yeah, on the
Fantastic.
so I'm in a three-story townhouse. And so I
Yes.
put some at the bottom step as you walk in the door, and then at the bottom step again at the second level. And so I've noticed that I'm able, like, literally it has an impact on how clean I can keep my house.
Yes. Yes, it's amazing to me. I just had someone put it by a sliding glass door that they could see as soon as they came in the house, because then your eye went straight out the house. And so none of
Mm.
the energy was kind of staying in the house. So it felt too yin, right? So
Mhm.
some of us have rushing energy where it feels too fast, like what
Mhm.
you're describing. And then some people, it's like the energy just immediately kind of skips right out and it feels too stagnant or restful, not enough vibrancy in the home. So I had her put it along her sliding glass door and she felt immediately better too. It's funny how just something so simple makes such a big difference.
It
It's
is.
a game changer, just that red
Yes.
washi tape. Yes.
Yeah,
I
it's
love that you're
amazing.
using it and keeping your island clear, hopefully still.
Yeah,
And
it's amazing. Like
yeah.
my house looks nice all the time. And I was beating myself up at the time when we first had the conversation, because I was like, I'm in this beautiful home, and I continued to put just random things on this counter, like sweatshirts, my purse, mail, boxes from Amazon, and then just cluttery stuff. And that's just
Yeah.
not the case anymore.
Oh, I love that, Brenda. I love that you're taking care of yourself through taking care of your space that way. I think that that's beautiful.
Are
That's
there
fantastic.
Thank you. Are there some common things that you hear from clients that we could talk about for the listener that might be like, "Well, I wanna put some feng shui in my home." What are some things they might be able to start with?
I think I always like to start with the front door because thinking about where does energy really enter our homes, it's going to come through the doors and the windows. And so if we tend to the front door, often we can shift the quality of what's coming into the house. I like to sweep the front door. I even clean my door with a little bit of orange essential oil because that citrus has a more vibrant scent to it. So
Mm-hmm.
again, like I'm flavoring that energy that's coming into the house. So when I sweep, it's like exfoliating or dry brushing. If you're somebody who does that regularly, we're dry brushing the energy, we're exfoliating the stale away. So
Mm-hmm.
when I work with someone, I often ask them to do that for 9 days straight. Go out, sweep that front step for 9 days straight, clean the door with some essential oil. If you have bells or chimes, it can be really nice to change the sound around your entryway each day for that 9 days. And then where the energy lands when it first comes into your house is really important because again, it's another opportunity to add a little bit of like seasoning to that energy that flows in. So having something you really love in your front entryway is going to basically flavor, I think is a good way to think about it, the energy that's going to move into the rest of the home. And so that might be you keep beautiful flowers there or a beautiful piece of art, but sometimes people get hung up in feng shui that they think it has to be a specific thing that feng shui, like it doesn't have to look like a feng shui store, right? It doesn't have to
Right.
be it. What's more important to me is that it be something you love because that's going to lift your energy. That's going to lift your chi when you come home. And so that
Mm-hmm.
I think working in that entryway can be a really great place to start.
I love that. So as we're recording, it's, the end of January. Lunar New Year is 2 days away. So I've got my little things laid out. I'm going to be doing my 9 bowls on the dining room table, and I have a little ritual that I'll be doing at the front door, but I'm going to incorporate this 9 day and orange essential oils. Like literally cannot wait to get that started.
I am so excited. And if you don't have this already in your Lunar New Year bag of tricks, getting mandarin oranges, 9 especially, because we talked about 9 is the number for this year, but it's also that number of completion and having it already have been manifested and taken on form. So 9 mandarin oranges, and I stand outside with my family and we bowl them into the house. And again, it's that gold coming in, like gold coins almost coming in, that citrus, like really uplifting energy. And so you can do it anytime. So if you were listening to this and it's not Lunar New Year anymore, don't worry, you can do this now. But it's one of my favorite Lunar New Year things that I wake up Lunar New Year and before we leave the house, we all go outside and we bowl in mandarin oranges to make sure that our life is sweet in the following year.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that. So, if somebody has a different kind of entryway, let's say an apartment, or in my case, I'm coming into a little entryway, heading up a staircase, and then I come into the main space. How do we navigate those different kinds of entryways?
Definitely. I think if you have the staircase at the bottom and then you come up to actually enter your living space, I would take that as like the universe wants me to do it twice, right? I have
Mm.
two opportunities to bring this energy in and up. So I would bowl those mandarin oranges at the front door and tend to that front door mouth of chi. And then and I would find some way to kind of entice the energy up the stairs, and you can do that in lots of different ways with art, with color, with movement. So if you had a flag or something up at where you actually move into your space could be really interesting. And then I would set up almost like another space to flavor the energy because you get to do it twice, which is actually really exciting.
That's
Keeping
fun.
Yes. If you live in an apartment, keeping light on, because that's going to attract energy as well. And so don't worry so much about I work with a lot of people who have like live in an apartment or some type of duplex. Like, we have so many different styles of homes. We don't all live in the same style of home, but we all can do something to pull that energy to our front door.
Okay, this is fun.
Yeah.
I like, let's make it a game.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And think about what calls to you, like what brings your eye? What do you notice? Because where your eye goes, energy is going to flow. And so if you can put something there that is going to like grab your attention in a positive way that you feel uplifted by, and you put that by the door, that's going to that's going to feed that energy coming in all the time. I just updated my wreath and I was showing my students online my new I made a new wreath and they were like all like it was just this little bit of updated, vibrant energy that everybody noticed and everybody felt uplifted by, even in a recording, right? And so
Mm,
I think
yeah.
noticing where your eye goes, noticing what you love, paint your door if you have the ability to paint your door. I know sometimes when you live somewhere where there's rules about what you paint your door, but if you have the ability to paint your door a color, like paint a color that you absolutely adore,
Oh,
something
that's
you
so
love.
good. So good. So I remember you telling the community that it's a little bit about the psychology, like your own personal psychology, so that like if you were looking at something and it brings you joy, that might be a really good option. And you said earlier today, it doesn't have to look like a feng shui store. Can you talk to us more about that? Because a lot of the people listening are high achievers, and and I am one too. And so I remember I discovered feng shui about 25 years ago. And I got this book by Lillian too, and I've carried it with me through all the moves, through all the states. I still reference it. I just absolutely love it. And as a high achiever, I can also try to feng shui or to high achieve my feng shui. And I
Yes.
really have to watch this in myself. And I know my people, and there's going to be some out there that are going to be like, I'm going to high achieve this. I'm going to do it.
Oh,
So
yes.
how can we create the changes that we want in our life and not make it look like a feng shui store because we're trying to high achieve it?
Oh my goodness. I deal with this regularly because one of the interesting things is that there's a school of feng shui for everyone, right? So if you do want to high achieve your feng shui, there are schools of feng shui. It's a lot like yoga or breath work or
Hmm.
meditation, where there are different traditions within an overarching feng shui tradition. And so there are schools that are going to tell you, I always ask, do you prefer rules or do you prefer a little more intuition and guidelines? Because I'm trained in all of many schools. So how I approach it with people is first finding out, do you want me to tell you exactly what to do or do you want to have more of an open relationship with your space? And
What a
I
great
really do
question.
encourage that. Yeah, because I think that there's something that intuitively many of us are creating good feng shui
Mhm.
without maybe giving ourselves credit for it. And that we can create this relationship. We talked about that intimacy with our spaces. If we trust ourselves and we trust our space to tell us what it wants and needs, then it becomes this interplay between the two. And that there's something really exciting that happens in that intimacy that we miss if we just go by the rule book.
I love this. So I often think about my general rule in life is if it feels really good, it's probably for me. Like if I feel that, oh, that's nice. I like that. Is that generally true in feng shui too? If I get that feeling about I'm putting this picture in this place or whatever?
Definitely. Definitely. And my needs have changed over time, right? So you can be really intuitive with your practice, and then if there's a season where maybe you want to be a little more structured or a little more traditional or formal with your practice, you can choose for a year or two to practice that. But I think that that relationship, your energy recognizes when something is like calling to you,
Hmm.
whether you're picking out a piece of jewelry or an outfit for the day or you're picking out art, that there's this resonance that happens to certain things in certain seasons of our life. And in feng shui, if you are feeling that resonance, you're feeling that for a reason. That the energy of you and that object or that space like you're meant to be together and kind of impact each other, that interplay again, that intimacy. And because our spaces can act as a mirror for how we're feeling on the inside, we were talking about that psychology,
Mhm.
that we can attune to certain objects. And so it can be a really powerful way, like if we do love something and it feels abundant, or it feels loving, or it feels respectful, or it feels like it makes boundaries possible, that we can use that to attune our energy to that. And then we don't have to work so hard. We don't have to work
Mm.
so hard at abundance. We don't have to work so hard at being visible or asking to be recognized. That we can create touchstones for that in our environment and attune to those touchstones. And it creates a little bit more ease and openness in our growing, like as we're trying to grow and expand into these qualities.
Like my whole system is like, it just feels like, yes, it feels like truth. It feels also so much easier than thinking about, do I have to get it perfect? Do I have to do this specific picture of these specific people or something like that? I just like, oh, I can trust a little bit in my own
Yes.
knowing. That feels really good.
Definitely. I think trusting ourselves is such a huge part of the journey, right? Like learning how to move from like that parent relationship where we're kind of told what we're supposed to do,
Hmm.
and just developing that trust in ourselves over time is such a huge part of our journey of development and really becoming who we're meant to be in our lives and standing kind of autonomy and our agency. And I think that feng shui can be a tool for that. And if you need support with that, often I'll start with something like the directions, east, north, south, west, to help people. And then we move it because some people it's hard to just step right into trusting your intuition
Yes, it
and
is.
to being, I mean, that's the work you do, right? Is helping people say yes
Hmm.
and recognizing what a yes feels like, what a yes is in their for their themselves, in their own bodies, in their own knowing. And so I think that that same thing happens with feng shui, that we can start with a container that feels a little more supportive and maybe more rules than guidelines, and then we kind of open up, we peel it open as you start to feel safer and you trust yourself more, that there's some really exciting things that come out of that process, but it can be scaffolded in the beginning, I think.
I love that. I love that. So I want to make sure that people know how they can connect with you. Where can they reach out to you and ask you questions and book sessions and learn more about feng shui?
Definitely. So I post pretty regularly on Instagram. So Instagram is always a great place. I'm at Jen Walthers is my name there. And then I also have my website and email if you want to reach out to me there. I love hearing from people and getting to have conversations like this beautiful conversation with you today, Brenda. So I'm always available via email or through, you can contact me through my website as well.
Amazing. Amazing. So we talked about, for the person that just wants to make a couple of changes, they could do their door, they can bowl with the oranges or the mandarins. And we also talked about just like being aware of what makes you feel really good, what at eye level is lighting you up. Are there any things that we might want to avoid?
Yes. Yes. I think often things come into style that aren't necessarily life affirming, if that makes sense, or
Uh-huh.
energy affirming. So all of the dried florals, the dried, those things can really kind of sap energy. And so if you love it, again, keep it because it's speaking to you, right? But if you want to try it out, maybe I just worked with a client who literally had those things everywhere. Like she had little vases of dried things
Hmm.
everywhere because that was her aesthetic, more of a boho style. And it was super cute. But she's trying to have a baby, she's trying to get
Oh.
pregnant. And
Hmm.
so all of that kind of like dry, like there's no life, there's no
Hmm.
there's
Mhm.
no juice left
Mhm.
in those things. And so she's moved those things out and is bringing more plants. Like you have a background here, like your office where you're working, a lot of vibrant energy because of those plants,
Mhm.
because of the crystals that you have set out. I know you've done this all very intentionally,
Yes.
but aren't we all lucky to be able to be in that space with you through
Mm.
through these recordings? So we get to I get to experience the energy of that even just by seeing your office. Those plants and those stones have so much energy. So we want to avoid dead things. If we have plants that aren't feeling so well, we probably want to consider moving those out as well, because we want to have that uplifted energy. If the things are flavoring the soup of our life, we want to have like those flavorings be really adding something to our vitality, to our own energy, so that we're feeling really good.
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful map you just created for people. If it's flavoring your life in a way that doesn't feel or taste good, so to speak, maybe it's time for it to move.
Yes. Yes.
That's so good. That's so good. So I hear people talk about three things. Um, Trying to find what they really want to do, like looking for that purpose, finding more abundance, and finding love.
Oh,
Are
yes.
there are there one simple thing for each that you could recommend to listeners?
Definitely. Let's start with money because that one's always very easy. So set out, often we don't have any way to receive. And
Mhm.
so I want people who are looking to receive abundance to set out a bowl to receive abundance in, and maybe put something that you love in the bowl. So you have some beautiful crystals there. You could set out a bowl and put a couple of crystals. 9 is always a great number. 8 is a great number for wealth and abundance as well. So maybe you put 8 or 9 little crystals in that bowl, or 8 or 9 coins, and you can just keep it somewhere on your desk or in your office and just have that there to represent that, okay, I'm receiving. I'm always
Mm.
receiving,
Mhm.
and I'm receiving with being in flow, not necessarily having to act, that I can trust that things are going to come and fill that bowl without me even having to really do anything, that it's not an exchange, it's kind of my birthright to receive.
Mm. Mhm.
So
That feels
that
good.
is, yes, yes, right. And then as far as love, I would love to see people partnering things very intentionally. I had a period of time where I really wanted to be single. And so I got a lot of art of just one woman in a painting, right? Being very independent.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when my desire shifted to wanting to be in a partnership, then it became about pairs. And so looking through your space, it doesn't have to be that you have like actual couples in your space. It doesn't have to be that literal, but you want to think about what are some objects, like maybe you can have the two candlesticks rather than being at opposite ends of your mantle. Maybe they could be together on one side.
Mm.
Looking at how chairs are partnered. Are they partnered with something kind of blocking in the middle, or can they actually be together? So taking that ability to look at the metaphors in your space and looking for things that are partnered. If you're trying to kind of tune in to yourself, because I feel like that's really what the work you and I both do is
Mhm.
about,
Yes.
is you really can be looking at your bedroom, because that's where you spend the most energy and you're in this really kind of vulnerable state. And so it's also where we dream. And I want you to put something on your nightstand that for you feels supportive, and it feels like it speaks to like just that little glimmer of yourself that you might have begun to sense through either listening to this podcast or working with Brenda or the work that you're doing in growth, that there's some symbol or something that is speaking to you that's almost like planting a seed. And I want you to plant that on the nightstand so that when you're sleeping, that energy is kind of just whispering to you into your dreams.
Mm.
And it's like cellular. It just comes in waves while you're sleeping. And that you, again, you don't have to work so hard. that it's just there supporting you. So I actually have one of those for myself. So I'll share it here if you're watching the recording, but it's a little stone hippo that I got in San Diego. And hippos are associated with, because they open their mouth so wide, they're so
Mhm.
associated with really like being clear in your voice and being able to express yourself. And so finding something that represents that version of you that you're hoping to become. I'm hoping to use my voice more. I'm working on a book. And so having that touchstone there kind of plants that seed for me to remind me that I can be a little bit more like a hippo and I can open my mouth a little wider and let my voice be heard. So finding something like that for yourself that speaks
Ooh,
to that.
yeah. Oh, this is so good. So I will admit that there is some intentionality around my nightstand, and then there is also a pile of books. Um,
Yes. Yes.
but so I'm like, oh, I think I'm going to put something different there because I have a bowl that's so full of crystals, I couldn't begin
Ooh.
to count them. And I like to sleep with them because I just feel like, oh, it just feels good to
Yes.
have all the things. Yeah, it's a lot of energy because a lot of people will walk in the room, they're like, whoa, what's in that bowl? So I know it's a lot, and so am I, and I'm good with that. Um,
I love that actually, Brenda. I love it.
but I also have this little, it's over here. I can't reach it right now, but I could bring it and show you if you want. I have a
Oh, I
little,
want to see it.
okay, hold on.
Yes.
So I have this little lily pad. It's made of jade, and I have these rose quartz. Whoops, I just dropped one. Rose quartz ducks. They're mandarin ducks. And
Yes.
to me, they represent partnership. And so I
Definitely.
have them in my relationship corner, but I'm going to move them to my nightstand because my goal for 2025 is to find romantic partnership.
Oh, I love that, Brenda. I love that. Yes, those, especially the rose quartz, the mandarin ducks, the pairing. It's again the two,
Mm-hmm.
and you've created a place with a lily pad to kind of anchor them so that they're sharing that space
Mm.
together. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. I love that as a metaphor. It's
Oh,
beautiful. And what a
thank
fun
you.
touchstone to have there to, again, like just infusing your dreams with that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that it just becomes, of course, there's a partner. Of course, there's,
Yeah, of course.
yes,
Of course, my
yes,
divine counterpart just appeared.
with some ease and some flow.
Yeah. Oh my
Right
gosh, ease
time,
and
right
flow.
place. Yes,
Ooh. I mean,
yes.
we could go on for days.
We really could.
This is so good. And I may have to cut this part out, but um I can't remember. I didn't look. Did you have a gift for the
I
audience?
I had a couple and I meant to check with you beforehand.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to create, if you were okay with it, with your tagline, the yes filled life. I have these cards that I've created that are feng shui affirmation cards. And so I
Beautiful.
just wanted to create a printable with that for your audience that they could go to my website. I have lots of things I offer, but I wanted to make something special for you and for your audience. So
Oh,
I
thank
wanted to
you.
create just a like a printable that people could print out and they could have there that talked about a yes filled life and had your tagline with some like supportive imagery behind it. So,
Oh my gosh. Yes, please.
okay,
Let's please.
fantastic. Fantastic.
Yes, that sounds awesome. So I'll link that in the show notes. I knew you
Great.
had something. I apologize for I was so excited to see
No,
you. I just
I
was like,
know. I'm
I'm
so
gonna go see Jen.
excited. Yes. Yes. I wanted to create something. I have things I offer when I go on other podcasts, but I just feel like our energy, I just feel so good when I talk to you. And I feel like our visions for our work is so aligned and how we show up to serve people
Mhm. I
that
feel
I
that
just
too.
wanted to create something special. And so
Thank you.
yes, yes,
Oh my gosh. So you want to go get that those cards, those printable cards. And we'll put the link in the show notes. So you're going to have to go look in the show notes for the link. Um, and it'll be worth your time. This is
definitely.
amazing. Oh my gosh. I feel like it would be fun, like fueling for me, if you're up for it, for us to do some collaborations.
I am so in for it. Yes. I would
Yes.
love that. I would
Okay.
love that.
All right. So
Yes.
we'll stop recording now and we'll dream into what those might be like. And if you love this episode, if you're going to try any of the things that Jen suggested, whether it's sweeping the front door for 9 days, or bowling for oranges, or creating imagery by your nightstand, or finding new ways to find something that you love to look at, please share this on social media and tag us, tag Jen and me, and we will put you in our stories, and we'll put your whatever you're doing in your stories. We want to see pictures, and let's just create some conversation around how much power we actually hold to create change in our lives and in our environments. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Brenda. Yes. I just got goosebumps when you said that. Yes. Oh,
Yes.
so good.
So good. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much.